Okay, this is for the Donaldson's 4x4 Snorkel Installation Guide, SN 593374. Says it fits a Land Cruiser 78. That's what I've got. Narrow front and yeah, narrow front for those. Basically, it says for a narrow front, but I've got the wide body. So this is the template that comes with it. It's got a little, looks like somebody hand drew that based on a bigger template. It was all wrinkled up, folded, so that's not happy. So I went ahead and got a piece of poster board from Staples and placed it on, outlined it, because I don't want to take the chance of drilling an 89mm hole in the fender of my Japanese imported Land Cruiser, JDM78 Land Cruiser, and then finding out that it doesn't fit, because I originally ordered that one, which is the 3375, and there's no way that was going to fit with that. I'm going to compare and provide dimensions. The problem is that goes, yeah, that goes too far forward, which would be up by the marker light. At least this one comes straight through, and I know they're not specifically for this version of Land Cruiser, but I know they've said that people have gotten it to fit. So what I'm going to do is like I said, I traced this on here, and I took the 89mm hole saw and drew a line, and now I'm going to fit this to the snorkel. And then once I fit it to the snorkel, make sure everything lines up. And because the problem is you can't fit it to the snorkel because it comes like this, and if you cut a big hole in it, now you have no way of doing it. So I recommend creating another template, a 1-for-1 replica, and then putting the hole in it, and then you can cut out the excess that you don't need. Because what appears to be the top line where it says line it with a guard, I'm assuming they say fender, so this will wrap around the top of the fender, and this will go to the back of the fender where the door line is, and it just doesn't it doesn't look right to me. So that's why I'm doing this, to match this to the snorkel and then match this directly to the fender to make sure it fits. So now I'm going to cut this out to get it to what somewhat size appropriate, so it's easier to handle besides this big long thing. Okay, so this is what I got. Looks like a submarine. So, but this will give me a better representation of where the holes will be, specifically this hole, because there's no turning back on this. If I mess these up, at least I can kind of move them left or right and cover them with silicone or a sealant, but that is a no-go if I drill it in the wrong spot. And since this is not an exact kit for my Land Cruiser, but they say it'll work, I'm going to now fit this to the snorkel. Okay, here is what I have. I cut this section out to line it up with the plastic so it doesn't look, so I can tell if it's lining up with this crease here, which goes into the inset crease of the fender. And the holes don't quite line up perfectly, so if I want to get this one centered, this one's too close, that one's too close, that one's too close. So I can basically line it up more with the lining of this crease where it insets into the fender, and kind of get every one of them to fit a little better. And in doing that, it pushes against this wall. Like I said, these aren't critical. This is. So this is the top edge of the fender, the back edge of the fender. I'm going to go line this up and see where this pushes through and how it relates to the inner fender wall. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trace the back side of this paper with a Sharpie. Once I get this set, and I'll tape it down, I'm going to trace the back wall of this right here where it curves, so that I can get a better representation of how much of the hole that I cut here will be covered by the plastic. Okay, got it trimmed out, and now I'm going to go take it out and fit it to the Land Cruiser. Okay, here's the problem. Lining this up with the edge of the fender and lining this up with the back of the fender, it angles upward and puts the center hole right on this crease here. Hold on a second. It puts the center hole right on this crease here, okay? And this center line should be about right here in the middle of this valley. So this crease, that the body curves down, and then right here it takes an angle towards the inward portion of the vehicle, and then straight down, and then curves out. This would not fit. This would basically not align at all, and I'd have a big ass hole that would basically be showing here when I mounted it correctly, because the get cat, the Snorkel has a defined line right here, which clearly is designed to go in this valley, right? Let me take these out and I'll show you. It's be a little difficult to do with one hand, so I'm gonna set the phone down, get it in position, and then go from there. Okay, so you can see where this curve, angle, flat, curve. So curve, angle, flat, and then the curve comes out underneath it. So this will be further forward because of, I can't get that off, but you can see it fits perfectly in there, and it's designed to rest inside that channel. It won't go up or down. And had I drilled, and you can tell that that is even at the correct angle, so it just has to go further back, but I can't because this nozzle sticking out. But had I drilled it, it would look like this. Probably about like that. So this would be completely wrong. So the template is not designed for this, so I'm gonna have to work some things out. I just know that this, I'm rotating it, it fits perfectly in here, and it slides forward and backwards in that valley. So that tells me that I need to adjust and measure so that these two surfaces and you can see this, so that this angle here fits that angle there, because these are clearly in line. So this hole here will be up on this. So this hole here will be up on this right here, a little bit lower. That hole there will be lower. This hole here will be lower. And then this big ass hole will clearly be lower than that little dot there that I've got. So now I have to measure from the center line of this hole, from this flat edge here, and I have maybe 3/16 of an inch of wiggle room to get this right, because there's only about 3/8 of an inch excess overlap. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that template lined up. I know that the top of that template already lines up with this flat area, and I just need to get this centered just below this, so I'm gonna have to measure that right quick. So I'm gonna say that's about 20 millimeters from the plateau to the center line of this Snorkel inlet. And 20 millimeters will be from the inset area down. So, I'm gonna use pencil for this. So from right there, let's get that lined up. I'll trace it. Okay, so you may be able to see the line that I drew right there. That's the lowest point. This is the highest point. This is the angle. So the highest point of this, the plateau, will align with the lowest point here. And then 20 millimeters down is where the hole will be. So I'll go ahead and draw that. Okay, so from there to here is 20 millimeters. So this is the true center line of the hole, the 89mm hole, because obviously this whole snorkel portion overlaps up into the fender. But if you drill here, you're gonna be probably, I would say, yeah, you're gonna be about 34mm too high. So that being said, now I have to locate the front to back hole based on, oh, that's gonna be a little bit hard. I'm hoping and praying and hoping that the front to back dot is still good, because if that's the case, then I can go straight down from it and then intersect with the bottom 20mm line in the plateau and of the snorkel in the valley of the fender, and that will give me my intersection. So, like so. So there's the dot from the original template. There's the intersection. I'm not just gonna go drilling, because obviously that would be bad if I got it wrong. And the problem with drilling all these holes just randomly is going to be very difficult to line them up. I think this is the first hole I'm gonna have to drill and just plug it in, and then when I get that right, I'm gonna go ahead and match up some threaded rods with a point, so that I can simply place it in here, line it up, and just push it, and it'll make an indentation in the tape of where I need to drill the rest of the holes, and that will solve that problem, because I don't want to be not lining up with this. I mean, I've got probably I've probably got about 30mm to the front and endless amount to the back. So even if I drill the hole out too big back here, it'll still be covered. But the critical dimension is this plateau. This is the plateau. This rides up over the curve of the fender. This is the plateau that goes down into the subsurface of the fender. And you know, the Land Cruisers have a very defined line there. You can see, you know, the top of it and then the bottom of it. And this obviously mimics that, riding along the top of it. So as long as I get this hole right, I can figure out these bolt holes, and that'll be based on where that bracket sits here, with some pressure center punches of some specific bolts. But I'm gonna go ahead and ponder the front to rear dimension just to make sure that it's all good to go. So I'm gonna put the new template up on here, utilizing this as my center line, and see how it lines up. Here's where we're at. Got the top line of this template lined up in the valley where the plateau will go. I've got this one lined up where it'll go, and I am 44 to 46mm left and right, top to bottom, over this hole, using the existing front template hole or dot where it said it needed to be, which is inaccurate. So W for wrong, that would be C for correct, hopefully, based on the measurement of 20mm down to the actual center line. Or yeah, so 20mm down from the center line to the plateau gives me the vertical line. I'm a little bit further back, and this is, well, the top of it is lined up, but the bottom overlaps, so the angle's wrong. This is all wrong. This kind of looks a little bit more accurate, represented on the actual snorkel. As you can see, it's slightly above there, so that's a little bit more accurate than it was. So now I'm going to, off camera, try to line it up and just kind of get an idea if that hole is going to be the correct one. And I hope they sell spare fenders on eBay. So if I get this wrong, it will line up. And what I'll do is, once I get this done, I'm going to plot out from this corner here, most likely, And from this corner here, so from here out and from there out, to get you a 90-degree. And if anybody needs that plot out, you can actually put it into AI and it will generate a PDF, or I can provide the PDF free of charge. So anybody needs it, I can just email it to them. You can take it to Staples and you can print out the PDF, a 1-to-1, no change in dimensions, and have them print out this entire template. And then that way you can just match it up to your Land Cruiser Prado. So I'm gonna go ahead and match it up. Make sure before you drill anywhere on this fender, you cover up this plastic fender to metal fender seam with tape so that no shavings get down behind the rubber gasket and or behind this fender and start rusting things out. So it'll just fall off. Now, an 89mm hole saw is a very large hole saw indeed. Fist size. This will grab and tear and rip. So you need to put it on a clutched drill, because what'll happen is as soon as it hits, it'll grab, it'll jerk it out of your hand and mess up your paint. So you need to basically get this first hole through, and then once you get it through, you can put it on a medium speed with a low clutch setting, so that if it catches, it'll stop and won't jerk and waller out this center hole. I pre-drilled an 1/8" diameter hole to get it started so this doesn't wander. I'm not a fan of using a center punch on a fender, even though it's a 1994 and it's thicker than the newer fenders. I just want to take my time and do it right. So let's get started. Okay, here we go. Locked in, clutch on. Leroy Jenkins. Make sure there's nothing behind there, which there is not. So I want to get a nice plane so that it's touching the top and the bottom at the same time. And I want to be going this way and then hitting. So I'm going to touch the plane, top and bottom, and then I'm going to back it out a little bit. And then you need to let the saw work. Do not apply pressure, just let the saw work. Notice how it's good. The clutch is giving out. That's what you want. Trust me. Another thing that will happen is if it cuts through on a majority of it, but then doesn't cut up here, it'll grab and throw the saw outward, because this hole is no longer being guided by the center of the hole is no longer a stable hole to keep it centered. So you gotta, like I said, have really good control of this so that doesn't happen, because it'll like that. it's catching right now. And instead of basically continuing, I'm just gonna pop this out and pry that off, because what happens is if this saw catches out here, it's gonna just take off on you, and I would rather just take my time and voila. Okay, moment of truth. Oh, this is gonna suck if it doesn't fit. Oh, look at that. Like a glove. That's exactly what you need to do. And I've still got plenty of room up and down. Okay, so right now I'm fitting the valley, the plastic in the valley. Put my weight up against it and kind of push it into this little channel here. Get it where it needs to be. And as you can see, it lines up. I don't know, you might not be able to see, but it'll line up with that with minimal effort. Right now I'm just fitting, seeing how much of the plateau of the plastic and the valley of the metal lines up. And once I get a feeling of where it needs to be, front, back, left, and right, and then I look up here and I can see, yes, it does line up with the A-pillar. So that is a success. Now the only thing I'm gonna have to account for is that this angles forward, looks like maybe a 20 to 25 degree angle, and that's gonna run into this inner fender. So I'm gonna have to cut some of this out and retrofit, because this is, again, not for this Land Cruiser when it goes forward. Now had this gone perpendicular 90 degrees out, it would come right out of this hole. So actually, it's a little bit further forward, probably about two inches forward. So now I'm gonna call this done. And one thing I learned in doing things like this is don't get too far ahead of yourself, because then you screw up. So I'm going to tape this off. It's not supposed to rain tonight. I'm gonna tape this off and then blow all this metal shavings off. And then I'll start this back up tomorrow with locating these holes. But I can already tell you that that hole is not where it needs to be. And neither is this one. The hole should be down here versus right there. So, whew, nerve-wracking. Okay, here's where we're at. So I placed the template back on top of the Snorkel and used this, put some tape on the back side of this, and then pushed an impression into, you can see the impression into the tape, and then centered punched with the screw or the nail into the actual center of the tape. And you can see how they're off slightly. So the template is off, matching up specifically to the bolts. So these larger holes were still going to be wrong and need to be wallered out. Just the fact of this template doesn't match that Snorkel over there. The holes are off, even with the elongated sizes. Now, it might be that this is elongation, and I believe this might be from here to here 16 millimeters, so it'd probably be up there to there. But centered, they're off, as you can see. And there's no need to half-ass it. So I went ahead and matched up the holes of the template with this screw and the tape, and then pushed the the nail into the tape to give me a location. You can see how far off they were based on matching this template to the top of the guard slash fender, what I call it, the guard, and the back of the guard slash fender. It still doesn't line up. So I went ahead and refit it just to get it to where it looks presentable, and went ahead and marked the general location of the vertical portion of the holes. And since, I mean, these are obviously wrong, but that's because it actually goes down at an angle, because it doesn't go straight across, it goes down at an angle. So that's what these little dots are for. I abandoned those and just went ahead and used the template because I know the hole's right. And since the hole's right, and now I know these little holes are right, I went ahead and just punched the holes. So now I'm gonna go ahead and drill these 4 holes and go ahead and test fit it. So the hole locations line up perfectly, plus or minus 1/8 of an inch, using I think it's 5/16 bit Varibit. So I had to go up to a 3/8 inch diameter Varibit. So 3/8 inch diameter, it fits perfectly. Again, using tape and a nail to locate the hole positions on a piece of plastic and a piece of metal. It's not a perfect science, but it is, and you can make the holes larger. 16 millimeter is what they call for, which is less than 3 or larger than 3/8. But a 3/8 inch diameter hole is sufficient for mounting it, and it lines up perfectly with the A-pillar. So I'm going to go ahead and peel the tape off and put a coating of primer on it in order to not let it sit overnight and rust. And depending on how long it takes for the sun to go down, it's probably like 5 o'clock right now. But yeah, this is a nightmare that I was not looking forward to doing because of the fact that I knew that it was not going to match up. Next thing I'm gonna have to do, as you can see back there, I'm gonna have to cut that inner portion and have the hose come out a certain way. It only goes in probably half the distance between here and here. So with the hose attaching right here, I could probably get away with attaching a hose directly to it without using their mounting plate. So there's plenty of room to get a hose on there with a clamp. So I won't have to use this because of the fact that it's obviously it'll be pointing forward like this. So if this is the plane of the, so if this cardboard here is the plane, it would basically be pointing like this and then wrap around the front of the air box. And the air box already has a hose in a general location. So I'd probably have to somehow get it to match up. I don't know, we'll see. I'll get everything together and then test fit it, but I'll probably have to get a custom hose for this. I'd like to keep it factory, but if not, then I'll have to start dicking around with getting that to fit. So I took a piece of poster board and rolled it into a 3-inch cylinder and then attached it to the actual snorkel. So it's centered on there, and I have pretty good confidence that simply drilling a hole in the center of this circle will suffice. Even though it points forward and down, I'm going to go ahead and get the air box, place it, and see if it makes see if it intersects correctly with the air box, designing a plenum or using the one that came with it. And if not, then I will use the silicone hose that I have to kind of curve into it a little bit. I can also get like a 10 or a 15 degree hose that automatically bends instead of bending the other one. But I'm gonna go ahead and get the airbox and test fit it. So this is the assembly, the intake, and then that comes into the actual airbox and sits like this. This and this are called Helmholtz resonators, and what they do is, as air is sucked in with the turbo, this is what I understand, these act as little muffler chambers to mitigate some of the airbox noise that is created by the turbo, I guess, that's sucking air in. It allows a little bit of air to go into these, and then at the very bottom you've got these little drain holes. They're about 1/8 inch diameter. I don't really care how it sounds, so I'm taking those off. And besides, look how much room that eats up. So I don't really care about those, but this right here is nice and clean. And with all this garbage on there, I was unable to find a location for a breaker box for my TrueMuds remote switch panel. So I'm gonna put that right here as soon as I get all this done. I can't actually do the electrical on this for all my accessories I'm putting on it until I get this airbox sorted out with the Snorkel. So just wanted to show you how much room you gain by removing all this garbage unnecessary. I mean, it serves a purpose, but not my purpose. Okay, so I've got the bolts started so that I know that this is perfectly located. When you go to take this airbox off, you've got a bolt here, a bolt there, and a bolt going through the firewall. And it's actually got a nut that holds it right there. It took me a minute to figure that out, but I was like, man, this is so difficult to get to until I actually went under and saw it. But it appears as though this is gonna make a nice intersection right there. So I'll just have to weld up an aluminum plenum. I'm not gonna use the one that came with the Snorkel. I'm just not a big fan of just a rubber O-ring that goes around the actual pipe. I got an aluminum pipe. I might not even need the aluminum pipe. I should be able to just use the hose now because I thought it was longer. That's what she said. But I'm gonna go ahead and drill this hole here. It's not gonna do too much damage, but it is necessary. So when you go to locate the hole, I had some light effect from the sun. Yeah, see, cover the sun. Okay, so when you go to locate the hole, you got this big bump out here with a threaded nut on the back, and then another one here threaded, and then you've got a dimple right there. So the way it looks is if you drill directly in between this threaded hole and that dimple, straight up and down, left and right, right in the center, with an 89mm hole saw, you should be able to get a good path to get that through. The sun's like messing up the camera. Anyway, you should be able to get a good path. Now you're gonna end up eating whatever nut that is for. I mean, nothing is attached to this. I mean, this is probably for some other accessories that this was intended for, but nothing bolts to that, so I think you're safe to go ahead and use it. Okay, again, I'm gonna pre-drill a tiny pilot hole. Buddy, come here. Leave cat alone. I might want to take this Snorkel off so I don't damage it. Get these little wafer magnets. Just place them randomly catch the metal chips. So even though the hole lines up perfectly, I'm going to clean this up a little bit so there's not these sharp edges and just make it look a little better. Then I'll go ahead and paint it. Very nice. Okay. So what I'm gonna have to do is make another paper tube because I'm not gonna go ahead and cut that good hose there. So I'll make another paper tube, and then now that I've got the hole going all the way through it, and that'll allow me to know exactly where to cut this and at what angle, and then I can use the aluminum pipe that I got to locate where I need to make the plenum. This is a plenum, but this is the plastic one. I'm not a fan of it because it's got this big white, okay, where's my scribe? Anyway, it's got this big white silicon gasket, but the flaw in it is where it comes together, it will suck dust and debris and water in, so I don't want water getting in there. So I want to make it to where it's actually a better option. That's too big anyway, so basically that's what it would be right there. So I'll go ahead and pop this hose off. Put the air box in and see how that lines up. Because if the plenum lines up, then that'll give me a good idea of the angles to cut the aluminum to make the plenum. So that sort of lines up, but the problem is that this doesn't actually quite reach the tube. It's probably like 2.5 inches away from it. As far as the geometry, I mean, that kind of lines up. I would have to make this bigger to fit this odd elongated shape. And then use like 4 inches of hose with an aluminum pipe going into the plastic, and then attach this with rivets. But the problem is that this bracket right here kind of interferes. As you can see, so I have to cut this away. I mean, that would work. The problem overall is that right now the way it sits is here's the center line of the tube, and the plenum center line is here, so it's too far back. So I would definitely have to make this hole larger to get this to work. But again, I'm just not a fan of this being the only sealing surface that prevents water from getting into the plenum around the pipe. So, that being said, I'm probably just going to go ahead and cut the paper tube and then have it come straight out, make contact with this, and then start cutting away at the paper to get this diameter. And then I can cut the aluminum to match it once it fits, and then get an aluminum plate and start bending it to this diameter, and then weld the aluminum plate to the tube, and then I could seal and rivet the plate to this box after cutting a hole and obviously filling this hole in. And then that way I can have a hose clamp here visible and a hose clamp accessible through there that attaches to the snorkel. Okay, so now I've got to transfer this to this. And it's going to be a whole lot of in and outs, in and outs, in and outs, in and outs. Because two things cannot occupy the same space at the same time. close. That's the best I can get. Good in the face. Ow! Buddy. Buddy, come here. My puppy's acting hard. Put a center line on this. Hey, what are you barking at? Buddy. Hey. Not as hard as you think, bud. Calm down. Buddy, come here. Okay, so as you can see, let me get this little thingamajig here working. Okay, so as you can see, that matches up quite well. It's touching the edge here, which gives me the correct angle, and then the bolts are in, so that's correct. Okay, so what I need to do is mark the location of the circle where the hole is going to be, mark top dead center, and then I'm going to need to cut this. It just needs to be a perpendicular cut to about right here, straight over, and that's enough to get one of these, where's it at? One of these nice hose clamps on it. Right there. And then I go cut a piece of aluminum tubing that I've got to this exact specification to right there. And then that way I can attach the permanent aluminum plenum to the air box, and it'll come out so I can take the air box off still with no issues, just simply by undoing the clamp and then wiggling the hose off. Okay, so this is gonna put me behind maybe a day or two, depending on how long Amazon takes to get me what I need. But instead of simply making this out of aluminum and then bending a piece of aluminum and then wave-reading and then attaching, blah, 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 what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna order one of these in stainless, and then I'm going to attach it directly to it and TIG weld. Since I've got a really nice TIG welder now, I'm going to TIG weld this directly to the air box instead of making a plenum. You know, since I'm reinventing the wheel. I know this is carbon steel, but this being stainless steel will eliminate any rust on this. And someone's probably cussing at the screen right now. No, don't weld stainless to carbon. It's not that big of a deal to me, because I can just take this whole thing and get it powder coated. I got a buddy that owns a powder coating shop. It needs it anyway. It's kind of a little rusty down in here, and then I'll TIG weld this up and then take the whole thing and get it powder coated. That way, let's see, what's this? Oh, that's just a pop-on gasket. It appears. I don't know if it's glued. Oh, it just popped on there. Okay, so that's the plan. I'll just go ahead and order a stainless tubing, 3-inch diameter. When it comes in, I'll just duplicate it like I did, because this seems to fit quite well. And I'll go ahead and take that out there and match the hose up to it, and then go ahead and cut the hose and get that matched up for proof of concept. And then that way, when I get the stainless piece, TIG weld, and it'll be done. Besides having to wait to get this back from powder coat. So I'm gonna do that. There we go. Buddy. 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 Come here. Leave him alone. there we go. So that will get me what I need. And I got some 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch neoprene closed cell adhesive backed to put in between here so it'll sandwich in and keep any debris from just floating around in there. But that turned out better than I thought it would. Line these holes up. So right there, that's going to be the finished product right there. And now that I've got this sorted out, I can make some brackets to either mount this right here or right there. I think this will be a little bit better. Make one little L bracket there, and then make one bracket coming up off the bottom. And then, 'cause I don't want it bouncing, so I'll use the wiper fluid bracket that I'll make to come down, L over. Let's see. And that will be out of the way of everything else. Okay, I took my time and got this to fit perfectly on both sides to the radius of the air box. And since I decided to do stainless, I went ahead and cut out a template and wrapped it around this tightly, taped it, and then trimmed the poster board to the exact shape to which I'm now going to transfer to the stainless. So I will draw this specific shape on the stainless, and then I will trim this all out, and then I'll make this to the appropriate length. I'll place it there, draw it, cut a hole, protrude it through about 1/4 inch. And I've also decided to put some type of a diverter, since the airflow comes in and it basically goes clockwise. Instead of having the air blow directly onto the air filter, I'm going to put like a diffuser, like a curved diffuser or something. Not sure yet, but it will direct it counterclockwise instead of blowing it directly onto the filter. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this and get it ready. And I've also cut a bunch of little pieces to do test welds to get my stainless TIG welding skills back up to par. So I tried my pneumatic reciprocating saw. It did not even want to touch it. Stainless is some tough stuff. So I ended up having to use my Dremel with, that's the 3rd 409 cutoff wheel. So now I'm going to use the sander to get it down to where it needs to be. Okay, so I've got the hose pushed all the way as far as it can go. I've got it cut 2 inches longer than the aluminum piece just to make sure that I had enough. I think I might have cut the rubber hose a little bit too short, so I'll probably have to order another one of those. It's about 20 bucks. But I've got this positioned where it needs to be. I think that'll work out quite well. So I'm gonna go ahead and paint mark at least 2 locations so that I know exactly where it needs to go, because Sharpie just wipes right off that stainless. Okay, paint marker, and then used my Dremel to put a permanent mark on. I'm not going to use a hole saw because obviously it's a coped cut, which means that it's not going to be perfectly circular. It'll be more of an angle because of the increased diameter from this side to this side, as you can see. So that is wider than that. So I'm just going to put it on here, mark it, and then either use my reciprocating saw or my Dremel to cut it out. Okay, so got my filler rods and surface cleaned and prepped with acetone, and let's do it live. There you go. Not the best looking weld, but it got the job done. Had a burn through right there, so I had to basically take my time and build it up. One of the sides, I can't remember which, I think it might have been maybe right there. I was thinking that this was the thicker of the material, and I was concentrating on this, and then it burnt through. I was like, oh shit, this is the thicker material, so I had to change course and fill that in. Now, I couldn't backfill it with any gas. There's no way to do it really. So I'm gonna grind that down with a grinding wheel and clean the outside of the pipe with a wire brush, and then try and clean that up with more TIG. So I tried welding on the inside, but it did not like that at all. It immediately started melting the edge of the pipe that's protruding in, and upon further inspection I can see that there's plenty of penetration from the backside, and it also starts dulling up this pretty bad. So I'm just going to leave it like this. It's not going to be having too much stress put on it, because it's going to be attached to a rubber hose. So I'm going to call this good. And now I need to find something that I can weld on the inside of this mild steel. Okay, I've got my franking clamps on. Got a piece of, I think, 18 gauge sheet clamped down. I'm gonna basically tack it and keep moving the clamps around to make sure it's nice and flat. Okay, I've got everything tacked in. It's all flat. Now I'm going to weld it the rest of the way. Okay, here we go. Got really good penetration. A little difficult to weld the backside. Had to curve the filler rod, so I kept touching off on kept dipping the tungsten. So I think, as shaky as my hands are, as much as I dip the tungsten, half of these are from the aluminum welding I did, but I'm gonna have to resharpen all of these. I'm just gonna go buy a dedicated tungsten sharpener, carbide sharpener, whatever, diamond sharpener, whatever you call it. But basically, I have a dedicated sander for it, but it just takes too long. So as much as I dip, might as well just buy one. But this turned out better than expected. I don't foresee any issues with it. Just gonna have to clean up this outside, grind it flat, make it look nice, and then instead of powder coating, I've got some master coat. I think I'm going to use that, spray it on it, because I'm gonna have to use that for my RV compartments, because they're rusting out pretty bad. But I think instead of using this powder coat, I think I'll just, like I said, use the AG111, I think it is, but it's a master coat. That'll give me some good practice with it, but turned out well. So the air box is all plugged up. For the rivet holes, I just took a 1032 screw and put it in the inside and used a nut on the backside, and then just welded it shut. I didn't want to take a chance of blowing through the sheet metal, so basically I just plugged it with a screw, welded it, took the nut off, ground it down, and then cleaned it up a little bit. It's an air box, it doesn't have to be perfect. The next step was to get the diffuser made. I don't have an English wheel and I don't have a sheet roller. So the next best trick is to scribe some lines about every 3/16 to a quarter to the length that you want it, where you mark it, so that's the maximum amount of radius that I need. Put it in the vise and just pull it towards me about until I just feel it bending, and then you get a decent little radius. So what that'll do is allow me to weld this in here with a little support at the top going across. You'll see when it's done, but that will prevent the filter from getting a hot spot directly onto it of dirt. So as you can see, I bent it a little bit too much, so it's completely closed. So now I just need to cut off little slivers at a time to get it to where it's actually going to flow in and go around. I might even curve it around this way a little bit so that it flows. And just like that. See if I can get it to line up a little bit. Okay, there we go. So the air comes in, hits the deflector or diffuser or whatever you want to call it, and then curves around the filter in a cyclonic style, but I have to keep it far enough away in order to not block it off. So I'm gonna have to cut some off of the this end closer so that it is probably about only 3/4 of the way to the actual to the filter instead of taking up the entire thing. Okay, that looks about right. Cut some off the top end and the bottom end to get it to where it's just about 3/4 of the way over. Enough room for the air to get in and just a little bit extra, about 1/4 of the space for the air to flow around. Let's do that. Done. So on those pegs, I just did a real quick tack on the bottom, and then just to get it in position. And then I came in from the top on the sheet metal and heated it up until it fused with the actual pegs, so I didn't have to worry about welding around the actual peg. Now that looks like dog crap, but it was a very, very hard angle to get to. And that's galvanized, so it's not pretty, but it'll work. You can see I've got good penetration, so I have to grind that down. So next step is to clean this all up, get all the rest off. I'll try and sandblast some of the areas that I can't reach, and then go ahead and paint it. Okay, so I'm using Master Coat High Build Silver Permanent Rust Sealer, and then AG11. I thinned it with 10% MCT 101 thinner, and I'm using AG111 paint. I took it to my buddy's and used his sandblast booth and sandblasted it completely. And right now I'm just waiting for the High Build Silver to dry to a non-tacky touch, which is getting close. And once that's done, then I'll spray the actual AG111 on it, and it should be ready. I also just got done applying 1/4 inch closed cell neoprene with adhesive backing to the actual snorkel so that no leaves and debris get behind it. It's not going to make contact very well up here unless this bolt really pulls it down. I wish there was just one more bolt back here to secure it, but there isn't, so I'm just gonna have to make do. But I'm gonna roll this out with my roller to make sure it's got a good adhesion so that it's not peeling off. if any of the portions do not make contact with the body panel. There it is in all its glory. Sandblasted, primed with a sealer from Mastercoat, and painted with AG11. Complete with air deflector, new intake, and the old intake sealed up. So I think this will work quite well. Ugh. So next thing I need to do is try and source a new one of these dust valves, because that thing is open. I know when it's breathing it's closing, but I doubt that's occurring. So this thing's pretty hard, so it's dry rotted, so I need to locate another one of these. It's been quite difficult so far, but I'm sure I can find something that will work. Okay, next day, this is ready to install. I took all the rubber parts off of the airbox and wiped them down and scraped the dirt off with a razor. So basically just saturated them and just kept scraping. You could see it was brown until it was all off, and then you could see it would reach the rubber. Excuse me, it would reach the rubber, and it did soften up a little bit. So this will have to do until I can find a replacement. I mean, this is an opening, however. It is on the outside of the air box. Doesn't make it to the inside. The flapper valve seems to be way better than it was. So it did reinvigorate some of the life in it until I can find a suitable replacement for this. I don't know if I really need this one. This one's pretty decent, but I definitely need a new evacuator valve. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this together. I'm gonna use Sikaflex to reattach this. Looked like they used some type of adhesive to hold this down in the center of the air box, where the seal mates with the metal, but this turned out quite well. And it's done. So I took the Helmholtz resonator off, welded a 3-inch pipe to the airbox directly in line, welded up the opening where it used to be. See how that's working. Waiting on this bracket to dry, I had to basically close it in a little bit because it was going to torque this if I tightened these two bolts down once I riveted it. So I went ahead and squeezed it together, decreasing the angle, and then cut off about a 1/4 inch so I could get a rivet gun in there. So I painted it with the high build silver sealer, and I'm waiting for that to dry. Then I'm going to paint it with the AG111, and then once that's dry, then I will go ahead and install it. So yes, I did not have to take the door off after all. My dumbass didn't consider that I could remove the windshield wiper fluid reservoir and have perfect access to it. So don't take your door off. I mean, it is what it is. I took it off, put it back on, whatever. But you just simply remove the windshield wiper reservoir and you have perfect access to all of the bolts. Yeah, you do want to make sure that when you go to tighten the nuts down onto the grub screws, which is basically a 1-inch long, whatever thread it is, screw without a head on it, but it does have an Allen hole, so you can put an Allen key into it. The problem is the nylock nuts, when they start tightening down, they want to turn the screw of the mounting screw in. Even though I put blue Loctite on it, one of them started turning. So basically you put the Allen screw on it and hold it, and then use a 1/2-inch wrench to tighten it down. You don't want it so tight that it's going to deform it, but you do want it tight so that it's not going to move. So this thing's on there solid. You don't have to worry about any issues, and the 1/4 inch was a good choice over the 1/8 that I bought. But 1/4 inch neoprene gap, or filling in the gap with the 1/4 inch neoprene. But man, this turned out way better than I thought it was going to. And I have access to these clamps from right here where the hole is. Originally, when I was thinking I had to take the door off, and even when I took the door off, I still couldn't reach my arm in. There's no way I could reach it in. But cutting this hole bigger allows you to get a better angle in. And like I said, taking the reservoir off, that made it a moot point anyway. Went ahead and installed the headlight and horn fuse block. So that's way louder, and I've got the LEDs. Those are looking quite snazzy. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the grill back on. The corner lights, which I need to get new ones because they're pretty messed up. This is gonna be for the bumper lights, rear, front, and the ditch lights, as well as any other accessories that I want to put on it. So it's got this keyless, or this wireless remote that you can put inside. But yeah, awesome sauce. That's it. It is complete with bird poop. Nice. Okay, so it is finished, installed, done. The Dobinson 4x4 snorkel kit for the 1994 Land Cruiser Prado has been modified to fit the 1KZ TE airbox by removing the Helmholtz resonator, plug welding up the existing intake, which was a rectangle about 3 inches by 5 inches, welding on a stainless 3-inch intake pipe. It doesn't have to be stainless, it can be regular carbon steel. 3-inch ID silicone intake hose with 2 heavy-duty 3-inch stainless hose clamps. Took a little work. I mean, if you know exactly what you need to do as far as where and what and how, it'd take you a couple days. However, trying to design this and come up with the correct angles and geometry, since the airbox kind of tilts inward and backwards, as well as plug welding everything up and getting it all set, that took a little bit of brain power and effort to get it just right, but it all worked out in the end, and I'm quite pleased with the result. So this is the snorkel you need to get. It's very nice.